All right, now that you're starting to get into modeling in Houdini, I was going to share this file with you. So it's a great little file. It has a engine model that is done completely in Houdini and a Rift or a gyro model that's done completely in Houdini. So this is a gyro, and then we have a template gyro, which hopefully this is I don't think this is the latest one. I'm going to update this before I send it to you. We have the ship floor template and then just like an engine size template. So it has all these like little just kind of helpers in here. And then it has the full pattern. So in the nutshell, this wind engine one is a little bit older, but I'm going to leave it in here because it doesn't really hurt to just leave it in there. I'm just going to walk over it real quick, which I already have tutorials that completely go over the making of all of this, but they're very long, so this will be much more condensed. Effectively, what we have here are these little network boxes. And so you can create a little network box and put stuff in it to organize stuff, and they can be different sizes. You can add little sticky notes to things to help you organize these graphs because they can get sophisticated at times. You tend to start out with basic shapes. So these are like circles, lines, boxes, curves. Curves are like manual drawings that you can do on the screen. And then you can make them 3D and do all sorts of patterns and run code over the points and change them and get the shape that you're wanting. And so in general, I try to like name these pieces and then we combine them all together to get the final geometry. And so once we get the final geometry, we then run an auto UV on it, and then we call this out engine block, this null node out engine block, because we're going to reference that later over here in the wind engine, or like the skin. It's like over here, this is pulling out and it's looking just for this out engine block. So you don't necessarily have to like do that name, but it can kind of save you some time when you're copy and pasting. This, like, I copy and paste these, and that's how I'm figuring out what the name is. So like wind, and so it's there's those little nuances aren't really important, so they're going to be there, but all you have to know is that in order for this to work, you need to reference that out node over here for the geometry. Everything below this out node null is going to be for animation. So this right here is what's called packing. And so this is what I was thinking of converting into an HDA because this becomes stable, where we put in some geometry and then it searches for joint concepts, and then it packs the geo. And so you can see the pack geo over here in the primitive section. So it only has 16 animatable parts. But when we go inside, you'll see that there's 9,000 different parts here. And so to animate this, it's kind of a nuisance. It's possible, but it's a nuisance. So what we do is we first pack that into discrete parts that are better organized. They have names. And so we have this J underscore pattern for marking a joint. Once we have this geo packed, we can create a skeleton that corresponds with the geo. And so this is how we name it the same thing as those J um, joint name, so J underscore and then the name of it, and so that will connect that joint to the geometry. And anytime that's manipulated, that joint's manipulated, it'll manipulate the geometry. And so these are basic spatial transformations for that geometry. So translate, rotate, scale, which you can do quite a bit with. We could do most of our animations with that. So that's what we do. With the animations, it's good to keep in mind that you can't change the geo without it breaking. So if, for example, you think of some other fancy animation, such as that in the Rift Gyro has, let me see if it's going to show it. Yeah, so the Rift Gyro has this like fancy little wave like animation for the orb there, where it's just kind of like producing a wave effect. That guy took a lot of work to get to work because we can't mess with the geo count. So there was a lot of like things that we did to make sure that that would work, because you can't change the number of polys once you get past this point. So this is a demarcation point for like final geo. And if you try and manipulate it down here, you're going to have a bad time. So we actually broke that rule for the first time and successfully got it to work, manipulating the geo down here to perform that animation. But it was tricky. So I'm gonna share all that with you so you can review it and ask questions and hopefully learn some things. There's a lot of little code snippets in here, like all over the place, and Yeah, hopefully this will be a good file to learn with. It's the best way to learn Houdini is to get in and see somebody else's file. This last part here, well, there's one little bit here. This transform just fixes any orientation issues or size problems. And so this is like putting it in the position so it matches with other engines. And that's a bit of trial and error. But once we have a working size, which we do, then we kind of compare it with that. So we don't have to worry about that too much. We can just add that in at any time later. This last part is just about exporting. And so we usually use this ROPNet, and it's going to reference this VAT out. We want to get rid of any like attributes that might cause it to split the geo because we just want one geo. And we run an unpack here, which is the opposite of the node up here. This stuff here that's packing it. When it crams it into these 16 bits of geo, we actually need to pull that back out in order to save it. So then we get this ROPNet and we run this labs vertex animation textures, which it doesn't come with Houdini by default. You'll have to download SideFX labs. Specifically, this is the version we're using, but maybe another version works. So with SideFX labs, it's on GitHub. And if I remember, I will put the link in the video as well to just have that. But we have a specific version, so I might have to send you that specific version. I'm also running on Houdini 19.0455, so I'll put all that information in. Hopefully we can just use a newer version and it's not a big deal, but honestly I don't know because of the shader that we're using in Unity. Just oof, it needs to be compatible, and I haven't barked up that tree yet. So once you have all the geo and created, we pull it in, and remember it's pulling it from here. So it's not messing with animated geo. It's just pulling this guy, the finished geo. We pull it in, and then all of this is data from this point on. We're going to select pieces of geo, and you don't want to double select. You want to be careful not to double select, or that can mess with the graphics in the engine. So you select all this geo, it gets its own colors, and then we merge it back in, and we perform a couple algorithms on it that compresses the shader features into these data arrays here. And let me see if they show up. Yeah, here we go. So it shoves it into these data arrays here, and then we pull it back out inside of this. So here's a bake plane normals, but then here we use cops to generate textures programmatically. And so inside of these nodes here, we will run some algorithms to get the colors converted here. So yeah, this is all these algorithms here. It just produces a texture like you're seeing here, this red guy, and that allows us to color our stuff. So this is basically the base setup. And so here's an engine, and here's a rift, or here's a gyro example, and these were 100% made in Houdini. I'm going to update this and then try and grab those links and upload this video for you. So hopefully you have some starting point guidance with how to deal with my tutorial videos and how to deal with this file.